All right, I'm Jeff with Quest Dehumidifiers. Dang. Right back at you too.
Stupid.
All right. Apologize that it looks a little yellow. It should be more green, but whatever. It's just color, right? So a little history on Quest. So we've been in the market manufacturing dehumidifiers for over 40 years. We've been in this market, the gardening market, for going on 12 years. So we're one of the longest standing dehumidifier companies that have been in this market. Throughout the years, we've taken a lot of feedback from growers and tweaked our products accordingly to make sure that it is exactly what you need for the multiple stages of the plant's growth. Based out of Madison, Wisconsin as well. Some of the other divisions that we're in is flood restoration, home, basement, crawl space type dehumidification as well. So why do you need dehumidifiers in your garden? So to maintain healthy plants, you want to make sure that your relative humidity is not over 60% for more than 24 hours. So I'm walking around, everybody's walking around scuffing stuff up. You could have PM, the spores of PM on you right now, and then when you're going in and out of gardens, all it takes is from one little droplet on a leaf, and your humidity levels will be over 60% for a 24-hour period, and boom, you can get powdery mildew. So dehumidifiers are supposed to help make sure and keep your humidity levels down at a manageable level, so you're not getting issues like powdery mildew, bud rot, gray mold. In addition to that, it helps reduce pesticide dependency. So some of the other pesticide companies that are maybe represented here might not like me saying that, but you want to lock in your environment. Once you lock into that environment, everything else that your plant will uptake is going to be maximized. So I always try to preach to people, lock in your grow room. So I get this question a lot, and we just added this slide to this presentation. Can an AC dehumidify? Yes, but is the AC optimized for moisture removal, for one? So ACs in the HVAC world, the higher SEER ratings for ACs makes them a lot more energy efficient. So, with that being said, in order to make them more efficient, they have to cut out other types of capabilities, and that's going to be their ability to dehumidify as a byproduct. So, when we factor in AC, when we do sizing, we take a couple of things into consideration too. How many lights are going to be in the room? What's the BTU load? Does everybody know what BTUs are? British thermal units. So once you get your lights in that room, once you get other like mechanical equipment in that room, they all put off British thermal units of heat. So, and it's all going to range. So when a lot of people put dedicated ACs in their rooms, it's because they're running high temperatures and they need to help offset the BTU load that their lights, dehumidifiers, other types of equipment in that grow room are going to be just adding more heat into it. What happens to moisture removal when the sun goes down? So another thing with AC. So a lot of people say, I'm going to rely on my AC to dehumidify. Okay. And in HVAC? A lot of HVAC. I don't know. Is there any HVAC people in here? Are you AC? Yeah. Oh man. More tonnage of AC. Just keep. You need a little bit more? We're going to throw 20 tons at it. You know. Exactly. So I'm glad you're here. Helping to not make sure, so you want to make sure that you're not oversizing your AC, because like this gentleman said, your energy bills are going to be a lot higher. So making sure that your ACs are sized accurately and running a dehumidifier in conjunction, what that does is they work more synergistically together, helps make the ACs run more efficiently, and in turn helps make the dehumidifier run more efficiently. So I'm not saying throw more tonnage of AC at it, but you're going to be spending more money out of pocket if you do something along those lines. And so when we factor in the ACs, we factor in the total loads, how many hours that it's running. So another thing with running or sizing up your ACs and running more tonnage of your AC Do you run your AC at night? That's a big question that I ask people. Yeah, you're running your AC all the time, and if you're using it as your sole dehumidifier, what happens is it gets colder at night. You don't want to run that AC. So there goes your dehumidification if that's all you're relying on. So we have sales engineers. This is a lot of calculations, and I said, you know what? Let's try to keep it simple because this is stuff that you guys factor. So we got guys that will look at grow rooms, look at plans, in addition to myself. But the sales engineers really dive deep into floor plans and making sure everything is sized accurately, in addition to ACs as well. So, you, sir, might understand this. Joseph. All right. Thank you, Joseph.
What would you like to know?
What would I like to know? Oh, many things. How to make $1 million right now.
We'll talk after that.
Sounds good.
Sell weed, right?
So dehumidifiers, placement options. So at least for us, we have 3 different kinds. So we have the floor type dehumidifier. I would like to call them portables more so, just because they have that portability option. They do have internal condensate pumps too, so if you want to pump that condensate further along, horizontally or up over a wall, you can as well. Overheads. So our overheads all look like this. This one right here. So you can actually get duct kits if you do want to duct the air into the dehumidifier and duct the dehumidified air back into your grow space. A common question I get, oh, there's warm air that comes off of this. Can I just duct that out? Sure, but you got a really expensive ventilation fan at that point. So it's that warm dehumidified air that you want to put back into that grow space, which, when we talk about AC, you got to accommodate for that heat load of that warm dehumidified air going back in there to make sure that you're not scorching your plants. So this is just kind of a reference on ducting capabilities. So this is a couple of facilities that we're in as well. One of our big 506s, they're pre-threaded for unistrut, so you can just hang those suckers right up as long as you have unistrut ran in your grow environment. Over here is going to be one of our 5 series. You can see that there is a P-trap. That's another thing you got to make sure. So any of these dehumidifiers that don't have buckets, you have to make sure there's a P-trap. And it's simple as you get $5 P-trap from a hardware store, or we give out condensate lines that come with it. Just make sure there's a loop. And then just to prevent the backflow of water. So what's available? So right now, our big one right now is 506. That one was launched last November at MJ Biz. It's actually the second most energy efficient dehumidifier that's out there. There's a lot of competitors out there, but when it comes down to energy efficiency, especially in dehumidification, it all comes to pints per kilowatt hour. That is where your efficiency is. It's not if you're 480, 277, 120 volt, it doesn't matter. Your pints per kilowatt hour is your energy efficiency. So this is going to be our 105, 155, 205, part of our 5 series. They're all the same chassis, different amp draws. And with the capacities, when we size on it, we need to figure that out based upon how much you're watering. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit. So another really popular unit that we have is a 225, which is a 240 volt. I'm not going to go into all the details of all the units on here. We do have a website, and I have some literature at my booth as well if you guys really want to get down into the semantics of all the units. And so also with all of our 5 series, we have turn dial dehumidistats on there. We don't put numbers on there. Joseph, in the HVAC world, you probably get a lot of people that are like, hey, my thermostat says it's 70, but my thermostat over here says 60, because there's a swing. There's usually a 5% swing. So one thing that we wanted to try to avoid, and every situation is different. It could be undersized, it could be oversized. You set it right there, you might not actually get to that point. So what I always recommend is getting a controller where the digital readout on it, so you know what your actual level is going to be and where you want it to be. your kits as well for the units. A lot of HVAC people who are going to be running the installation for it, you can request that from them at that time as well. Now we also have our 10 series. 10 series is going to be less of an MSRP upfront cost. Smaller chassis than our 5 series, and it comes with hanging brackets. What's up, guys? Ideally, they fit great in between floor joists, so if you're worried about ceiling heights and not having a big unit in there, fits great in right in between floor joists. And then we came out with this little 70 pinter. So it's great for drying rooms, great for hobby growers, and it's our smallest size. I would compare it to like 2 shoe boxes kind of stacked up on top of each other. Portables. So with portables, we got stainless steel and we got shatterproof plastic. So one's going to be 74 pints and 174. So the nice thing about these is going to be drying rooms. If you have product that you're hanging up, you don't want an overhead necessarily, depending upon your application. Built-in condensate pumps as well. And they're also really good in the last couple weeks of flower when you want to crash that relative humidity a little bit more and increase your terpene count. So some people have one of these, or maybe it's a different dehumidifier that they use that they turn into a portable. Phenomenal. But it's a good stressor on the plant in the last couple of weeks to crash it a little bit more. Now drying rooms for this, there's 132D. This is a very specific application. In most cases, refrigerant-based dehumidifiers are going to be what you're going to want to get. Now what a desiccant is, when people cure, they use those little 2-way humidity packs for curing to make sure that it stays at the optimal temperature. Imagine this being a giant Boveda or Intender Boost pack. So there's just 4 different process streams in there. It's not refrigerant based. It uses a silica type of material. So the BTU, so the amount of heat that this thing puts off is close to nothing. It's maybe right around 2,000 BTUs. If we're getting into this type of product, we're going to be, I don't want to go too much in depth with it based upon time, but I can talk to anybody offline about it if they really want to. Oh, one thing that I wanted to mention, it does break the rules of the temperature range of a refrigerant-based dehumidifier. So since it isn't refrigerant, once it gets colder, its capacities start to go down. With this being silica type material, it's just going to be consistently working the exact same time or exact same efficiency no matter where your temperature range is. But you can go all the way down to about 10 degrees with this sucker, and you can go all the way up to about 160 degrees. So air movement. So in addition to dehumidification, we like to talk air movement. Just to, you want to have that vortex going. You want to be cycling that air around, making sure that your dehumidified enriched air is going through. Your cold AC air is getting circulated throughout that room, so you don't have microclimates. You don't have little spots where it's going to be 64 degrees over here and 84 over here. So we have an F9 air mover. Not much power consumption, but it moves a massive amount of air. Great for air circulation underneath your canopy, since it pulls the air down and shoots it out underneath. A lot of people, if you're running CO2, it helps pull that CO2 down and cycle it underneath your canopy. Because CO2 is going to drop no matter what. You want to make sure that that CO2 air that you spend money on is being cycled around your room. And then every plant's actually getting the most bang for your buck out of that. And then we have an H5, so it's an air scrubber. I hate the term scrubber, because everybody thinks carbon. There's no carbon in here. Any smelly air going in is going to be smelly air coming out. But it's great for extra air filtration in your grow room and trimming rooms. Because
Where's the in and out on that machine right there?
this one comes in, top down, and then shoots out along the floor. So similar to like flood restoration fans or those whistle fans, they shoot the air out about 4 or 5 feet and it'll come out and stress out your plants. This, 20, 30 feet away, you still feel the air blowing to the floor. 925. Now this one is going to be 250 to 500. 500 at max speed. This one is speed controlled. This one is not. But your CFMs drop a little bit, your amp draws go a little bit higher. Makes sense. You're pulling through a MERV filter for the large particles and then your HEPA filter underneath.
360 speeds?
3 speeds?
Is that what that is, or is it variable?
This is variable speed.
No, the one, go back, the Quest F9.
This one is not. There's no speed control on it. I've been asked that question a few times. If you can hook up like a throttle switch or like some sort of dimming switch or something like that, you can. The motor is designed to run it where it's at. It just might burn out the motor a little bit faster. That's all. So size in a grow room. So lights, square footage, everything else that you can tell me will come in later. Always, 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 always watering schedule. And the reason why is because in residential settings, we go by square footage. You're not physically pushing a crap ton of water into that space. Now, in grow rooms, you're putting a bunch of water in that space. So how we size is based upon plant transpiration rates. Can anybody tell me how much, so if I water 20 gallons to my plant in one day, how much water is going to be coming out?
Almost all of it.
Does anybody know?
Like 90.
Just yell it.
95%.
90 to 95%. So we go by water in equals water out. And then we ask about the other variables going on from there because every application is different. Other things that we need to take, like I said, plant count, square footage, room volume, light count. This is all after we hear about the watering schedule. And this is a quick little example. Watering 50 gallons a day with 12 gallons draining to waste. Since that drain to waste is being removed from the room, we can actually take it out of the equation, which is actually good. Which sometimes means you can go with less units. So what's left over needs to be removed per day, and then what we would recommend are all of our units, their model numbers, are how many pints per day that they do at AHAM. So like I was saying, other considerations: dehumidification from ACs, dehumidifier performance variance at different temperatures and relative humidities, building leakage, ventilation, greenhouses versus indoor. One thing I really like about Michigan, there's a lot of indoor. Outdoor, you can't really do a lot of dehumidification outdoor. You're just wasting money at that time. And greenhouses, there's just a lot of variables. And then people coming in and out of the space, there's a certain amount of, through respiration, a certain amount of condensation that they're gonna be putting off in the air. It's hot up here, I'm sweating, so I'm adding moisture to this space, you know? And then we always size for the worst case scenarios. So the last couple weeks of flower or during your flush. Because if we size for week 1 or 2, you're gonna come back and be like, Jeff, what the hell is going on? This sucker ain't keeping up. Well, we size for the early stages, not the late stages. So dehumidifier performance on non-AHAM conditions. So this is gonna be all refrigerant-based dehumidifiers are very dependent on temperature and relative humidity. The colder it is, the less capacity that they're going to have. So knowing what you want your conditions to be at is going to help us significantly on sizing, especially with the lights on and the lights off. So we're tested at 80 and 60, which are growing conditions, which the standard is called AHAM. At 70, 55, which isn't uncommon for gardens, the performance becomes about 350 pints per day. Now that is just dropping that temperature by about, 5 degrees, 5% or 10 degrees, 55% relative humidity. Colder air can't hold as much moisture. That's why in Michigan we feel our hands get dry in the wintertime. There's not much moisture in the air. And if a garden environment is kept at lower temperature and relative humidities than AHAM, there'll be less water in the air, dehumidifier performance will decrease. As desired garden environments drift from AHAM, conditions varying, dehumidifier performance should be considered when sizing the garden. So we have charts that will look at those different temperatures. Greenhouses versus indoor. Greenhouses will typically have a higher leak rate than buildings. A lot of people, when they run greenhouses, they will do open venting when the lights are on to help get that air exchange. We got to be really careful in Michigan during different seasons though, because that outside air does play a factor. Greenhouses are often ventilated heavily and will need to be sealed off in order for dehumidifiers to work. So in greenhouse type applications, if anybody's looking at setting up a greenhouse or a hybrid type greenhouse, usually what happens is they'll vent during the day and then they'll shut everything off or close everything up, and then they'll run their dehumidifiers at night when the lights go out. If they're running dedicated AC in there, you know what? They're not getting that supplement. That's when dehumidification is the most critical, especially in greenhouses. And if no vapor barriers are used, moisture can enter the environment through the ground. So, it's raining outside. See all these leaks, cracks, and imperfections in the ground? 100% humidity outside? It's going to be coming up through this floor as well if you don't have any vapor barriers down. And a lot of people are going to be like, well, what the heck's going on? That's why. So, seal up your grow rooms. Seal them up. People, this is a quick little slide. So what we factor in, people give off moisture at a rate of quarter to half pounds per hour. Likely would play a small role, but should still be considered. Depends upon how often you're going in and out of that grow room. You know, if you're working hard at it, you might be adding a little bit more moisture, but any type of refrigerant-based dehumidifier would be able to be, it's fine. If you're going in and out of there. It's not going to make that much of a difference between two model numbers with people going in and out.
Right.
Size of indoor grow facilities. So we got an area of about 800 square feet, 25 ton AC, size for late flowering. So just a quick little example, plant transpiration. So 1,000 pints per day is what they're watering with, and then they have 100 pints of runoff. So 900 plants per day, or 900 pints per day, we would recommend 2 Quest 506s, if that's all the information that was provided to us. And that's because 506 plus 506 is 1,012. Last time I checked. I'm looking at a watch, thinking it's going to tell me what the calculation is. So, like ACs in this aspect with dehumidification, you always want to make it one step higher. And that's only because then you're planning for those capacities. If you need 900 pints of dehumidification and you're sitting at 850 pints worth of dehumidification that you have in dehumidifiers, those units are, what's that? Those units are going to be running 24/7. They're going to be working a lot more, which in turn, a lot of the efficiency then kind of goes out the window because you're overrunning them then, and they're undersized. But just inversely, if you oversize it, what happens, just like ACs, it'll push out a massive amount of air, hit that thermostat, the thermostat will register it, and it'll shut it off. Well, there's not an even distribution of dehumidified air at that point. So making sure that it's sized accurately is very, very critical. So return on investment. So, quick little breakdown here. My sales engineer put this together. So removing 100 gallons, 800 pints per day at 80 and 60. We just did some quick little number breakdowns for how many units that you would need. We could do this with anybody who's looking at dehumidification as well too. We do a 5-year cost of breakdown just because all of our units come with 5-year warranties. Now here's another one that's not at AHAM. So if they're rating their units differently, which not all dehumidifier companies rate their units the same. So that's fine. It's just knowing how they rate their units, which is going to help me be able to size accurately. So here's another one. As you can see, the 506, it comes down a little bit, just as like in the competitor 300. So when you factor based upon this temperature and relative humidity, you can still see the breakdown of the efficiency of the 506 being able to take out more water and be more energy efficient and more cost efficient for you guys.
Those are big units. It's a lot of water.
Questions? You can call this 877 number. I have business cards with my cell phone number and my email on there. Feel free to reach out to me. If you do call me, leave me a voicemail. I do support a lot of states, but I think everybody is just as important as the next one. I like to partner with people, and Quest as a whole, we like to partner with people to make sure that, hey, if something got kind of changed up here, let's reevaluate it. Let's look at it again. We just want to lock in environments. We want to make sure that, I was in Oklahoma, and I think that there was one thing that was said that I really liked, and I think it's going to hold true in Michigan here too, is when things go wreck, are you the one that's going to be growing cannabis, or are you growing medicine? I don't know. Pretty easy question, but it's kind of like, oh, okay. You know, if they're growing medicine, pesticides, all that other stuff, you know, all these labs are going to be testing that, and they're finding all of it. The days of being able to extract out all this PM, it's not there anymore. You know, so growing clean and locking in your growing environment is where it's at if you want to grow medicine. Now, if you want to grow cannabis, you can grow it however you want. You know, you can throw whatever you want at it. So, I think I'm good.
What's up?
I'm good.
What do you need?
Oh, nothing. I thought you were pointing at me. But yeah, questions, definitely reach out to us. If you call that number, option 1 gets you straight through to our inside sales, or us, reps. Option 2, we have phone techs that will troubleshoot over the phone with you, and we are very diligent at getting replacement units or making sure that those units are back up and running. And it's not uncommon for us to come out and help do those repairs. So, any questions?
What do you want?
What did I want? I want $1 million.
I heard that.
Yeah.
So do I.
All right. If there's no questions, good. All right. Thank you.